Poetry is not for those who write it, it's for those who need it. This quote by Pablo Neruda completely resonates with our guest today, Emer Davis, who's a civil servant and a poet at heart. Emer was born in Ireland and has lived in London, Abu Dhabi, and Delhi. She studied communication and film studies in Dublin and currently works as head of immigration at Embassy of Ireland in Delhi. She has been writing poetry, short stories for over 30 years now and has been involved in various writer groups. Several of her poems and stories have been published in Ireland, UK, Italy, Romania, UAE, US, Nepal, and India. She has been living in India since 2018. So, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you today for another enthralling session with Emer Davis on her two poetry books called Chart and Postcards from India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emer Davis. A very warm welcome to you, Emer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's great.
So, Emer, I would like to start with the story that, you know, how have you inspired to write your experiences in the shape of poetry?
I suppose I've always been interested in poetry or in writing, like even from a very, very young age. I remember my father got me some copybooks for me to start at school. And within the first 3 days or week, I had literally written on every page of the copybooks, and you had to go out and buy me a whole new set of them. And I grew up on Achill Island for my childhood, which is on the west coast of Ireland. And the landscape was just absolutely fantastic. And that really inspired me. The nature around that inspired me to write. And I suppose from that, the sea, I very much love the sea, even though I can't swim. I love being surrounded by water. I love hearing the waves, and that always inspires me. So then when I went to Dublin to study. I studied communications and film, and that was an area that I was interested in. It was, again, there was writing involved in that. And then in London, but I would say for the first 25 years, my writing, I would write for a while, then stop, write and stop. And it wasn't until I came back to Ireland after London, I went back into writing. I actually was writing, I was studying film production, and I was doing script writing, and that I loved, fell in love with. It was the one class I never missed. I would spend my whole time redrafting the film plays, and then I joined the civil service in between that time. And I was, at that stage, I was kind of writing on and off. I had a few bits published. And then my husband, Sean, had been diagnosed with cancer for the second time in 2008. And I kind of said to myself, when he goes into remission and all this is over, I am going to just go back and write again and write properly. And really, Gil said, you only have one life. You just have to go out there and do it. And we actually ended up, when he was in remission, we went on our holidays to Skiathos, a Greek island. And it was September 2008. And the travel agents we traveled with went bust while we were there. And we had to cut our holiday short by a week. And we arrived back a week early from our holidays, and the local paper, I saw this advert. They were looking for people to join, for writers, emerging writers, to join a workshop. It would be on a weekly basis on a Saturday afternoon. And I saw that, and I thought, so you had to put all some of your writing together. So I did that, put it in, posted it in the post box, and then went to Limerick for the week for the remainder of my annual leave. And I got chosen and I was one of the 10 people, and it was absolutely fantastic because that really got me back into writing properly and to be structured about it. And when I completed that, I actually went, the person who did it, Yvonne Cullen, she was a poet and a facilitator for workshops, and she was absolutely fantastic. And she invited me to join her groups in workshops in Dublin, and I did that for 2 years before I went to Abu Dhabi. And that was really good because it really got me to develop myself. And you know, the feedback that I got was really, really important to me because it really got me to see inside myself, to really dig deep and feel about what I was writing about and to find my voice. And that was the thing. I could see myself maturing during all that time and opening up to things around me. And I suppose I've always been interested because I am very observant, or I would find myself being very observant around things. So I would take little notes all the time and that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it got me back into it.
I have seen you carrying that little notebook and pen always in your purse. And I've seen you that you don't speak much, but you're always observing your surroundings, which is a very, very good habit. So, Emer, we read a lot of books, but some books turn us into writers. I mean, they inspire us further to write. So, which are those writers, authors, poets who have inspired you a lot in life?
Well, I suppose I mean, I've been an avid reader from a very, very young age and would read literally everything. And when I grew up in Achill, we had what was called um, a mobile library, and that would come every 3 weeks to us. So I would go there, you'd have your whatever, your 10 minutes, look around, it's kind of a little camper van. You go in and you pick what books you wanted and that. So sometimes I just didn't have enough. My mother had an awful lot of books. So as an early teenager, I started reading the books that she had. So the books I would have read at that stage would have been James Baldwin, Simone de Beauvoir, Albert Camus. There was a lot of kind of human rights books um, about gender issues, equality. So all those kind of books. So I was kind of steeped into that from a very early age. And then all the classics. I mean, some of the books books that have stayed with me have been like Jane Austen, like Persuasion. Another novelist that has stayed with me is Daphne du Maurier. Like her short story, Don't Look Now. To me, the last page of that is probably the best ending ever of a book. And even to this day, I can still read that and remember how I felt the first time when I read the ending. And then with poetry, I love Patrick Kavanagh, Yeats, and then all the classic writers, poets. And then during certain times in my life, you go through different phases. So, I mean, in my 20s, I would have been very much into Charles Bukowski and all those type of poets. But as I got older, I would have been into different types of poets, depending what I'm actually would be into at that particular time. Like I wrote a lot of poems about the Second World War and women during the Second World War, and especially Irish women during the Second World War. So I read a lot of poets that would have written about war poetry at the time, and that. So it really depends. Um, I I always buy poetry books wherever I go. So when I was in Sri Lanka, I bought loads of poetry books. I have loads of poetry books from all around India because I would go automatically go into a bookshop and buy poetry books. And so I have them there, and they're always a resource to go back to. That's what I find, and I would always try and carry a poetry book with me. So I'd have it there. Like when I used to live in Ireland, I would travel up on the train quite a lot. So I'd always have a poetry book in my bag and that to carry, or wherever I was going. There's always something that you can fall back onto. you know.
So, how did the poetic journey started back in Ireland? I know that you've started a lot of garden poetry sessions, and you've started a lot of local poetry, sessions within your neighborhood. So, how did all that started?
Well, I had been involved in London in the Greening Irish Writers Centre, and that, so I'd seen how you get involved in groups. And then when I moved to Ireland, I we'd moved to Drogheda, which is a small town outside of Dublin, and from there I decided to join the writers group. So I joined the writers group there for a while, and I was involved in setting up with the Art Centre Poetry in Motion. So I organised some uh, poetry recitals on a monthly basis. Um, and then it was actually after I came back from Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi was a great opportunity for me to see where a place where there is literally very little poetry, and how if somebody brings in some poetry, how it can inspire into something much bigger. And I saw that through an American poet who was living there, and he had set up a poetry group called Rooftop Rhythms, and I got involved in that. And so when I came back to Ireland, I kind of thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that we have some kind of writers group and that. So I was involved in the Drogheda Creatives Writers Group, and then the what was called Poetry in the Park. And Poetry in the Park was just a very simple idea. You once a month on a Sunday, anybody who's interested in poetry comes to a park and you read. You can read your own work or somebody else's work and that. Now in Ireland, it's a nice idea if you got sunshine all the time, but in Ireland, in the wind and rain, it doesn't always work out. But we were very lucky. We had the local cottage market that actually gave us a place where we could read and that. And now that has moved to an indoor venue at the moment. Um, and from that, it was the Fla, and it was the Fla is an Irish music festival and dance festival. And it was coming, it goes to a town in Ireland for 2 years every year, and it was coming to Drogheda. And it's the biggest event that actually happens. And so when the first year that I was coming to Drogheda was actually the year I was moving to Delhi, but I decided, no, we are going to do a poetry trail. So the idea behind it was to get all the local poets in the Drogheda area, or that have a connection to Drogheda, to submit one or two poems. We would then put them up against on all the windows of the restaurants and shops and buildings. And for the week of the Fla, everybody could read the poems. So we did that. I mean, it took a lot of work to get it done, because we had to go around and ask all the shop owners would they be happy to do that. And it was a really, really big success. Even President Michael D. Higgins said it was really good to actually have poetry involved in the Fla. And it was one of the first years that actually happened. So then the second year, we actually we published our book, Poetry of the Trail. And there was also some poetry recitals. Again, I couldn't be there for it, but I was there in spirit.
That's wonderful. I think there your administrative services, your capabilities, and your poetic qualities actually work together.
Yeah,
So, you remember, Emer, that you came to watch a play that I was playing solo, and it
that's
was a
right.
live sketch. It was a live sketch of all the joys, the losses that I had, seen in life. Till then, I mean, I knew you as a friend, I knew you as an administrator, but I only knew you as a woman, as a creative person, when you actually sent me the poetry, a piece of poetry that you wrote. You gathered all your experience on that play. and you wrote a piece of poetry for me. I would really like to recite that here for our audiences. It's like, it's called What We Keep. Snapshots held so tightly, unable to release the loss and hurt, bound up in these faded images. Young faces, chemistry, big eyes staring into the lens, a lopsided smile, a sideways glance, friends holding tight, lost in the moment, dreams and hopes cascading through silent lips, loyal to the end. A creased print, pressed with all the faded hues, seeping from our lives, a patchwork of our time, gathering dust, a memory locked in the palm of my hand. I mean, I have to tell you this, that when I read this poetry, these words, I could see that my friend was a wordsmith, and your words had power. And in all these lines, you had actually explained and described the pain that I was going through in that book. So I would like you to tell me the background story of this poem, and how did you feel that you had to write about your experience?
Um, when we went to see the play, and your performance was absolutely fantastic. And what I remember was that when you were moving from kind of scene to scene, you used photographs. And it was lovely to see those photographs and to be able to see. And to me, I mean, I've always believed that photographs, um, they are a very good memory locker, because they keep that memory for you, and also a reminder to be able to look at that. And when you hold a photograph in your hand, and it's what that photograph can do. It can unravel all the things that you can remember about that person, and especially about family. And that's what I wanted to get through, because you opened your hearts to us that night, about your family and about your loss. And to me, it was just amazing how you had done that, and with the photographs. And I just wanted to encapsulate that. To me, I take a lot of photographs. And the reason I take the photographs is because so I can go back and remember, because I do find that sometimes we forget things, but when you actually see that photograph, it brings you back into how you actually feel, or what you want to feel, or sometimes I actually find, if you want to be able, I mean, my parents died, my parents were dead uh, 15, 16 years ago, and I can always remember with my father, when I used to look at photographs of him when he was younger, it brought me back to times, happy times. And
Hmm.
I like to think about that, when like one of my favorite photographs is when we used to pick dandelions in the Dublin Mountains. And like there are just black and white photographs. But when I look at the photographs, I can think of the colour, the yellow dandelions, the dresses we were wearing, the buckets that we were holding as we were picking the dandelions. So it's things like that. So to me, photographs are really, really important for us as a reminder. And I think as we get older as well, I think they're very, very important for our memory.
Exactly. And that was such a beautiful gift to me because, next day of the performance, you feel a vacuum that, oh my God, now you've done that all. You presented it, it's all out there. So that your poetry filled that vacuum for me the next day. So there's a sense of imagery whenever you play with your words in your poems. So the tone is mild, but the message is loud, it's out there. So I would like to, I would really like you to recite one of your poems so that our audience know that what I'm talking about. Would you do that for us?
Yeah, yeah. What I'll do is, This is a short one in postcards from India, and it's actually called In a Flicker. And this one was inspired by Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. So it's called In a Flicker. In a flicker, I see us fall from grace, melt into the upward stream as we travel beyond the barriers. Figures reclined in the missing space. I watch you dance in a flicker. Your body shimmers in the falling light. You travel deep inside of me, a restless soul searching for our hearts. And I mean, I've read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, and of course, it's about the journey into Africa and the experiences of Africa at the turn of the late 1800s. Um, and I think that the story behind that, you know, when you analyze that the story and that, you kind of wonder, well, was the darkness really Africa, or was it Europe and what Europe was doing in Africa? And it deals with the themes of loneliness and unfamiliarity. And I suppose what I was trying in that was projecting of, here I was in India on a journey myself. And there was, in a sense, Sean was in Ireland. We were both in two different places. And we're on two
Some technical hitch there. Emer, come back. Are you coming back, Emer? Can't hear you. You're freezed. Come back, come back, come back. So, I'm going to read out a poem from Postcards from India till the time Emer comes back. As you like it. As you fall out of love, you wonder how his gentle touch caressed every fiber of your skin. As you fall out of love, you wonder how he kissed away your first blushes and reeled you in. As you fall out of love, you wonder how you couldn't see beyond his smile and the shadows beneath his eyes. As you fall out of love, you untie every thread which binds you together and tremble in the closing light, watching the sun setting in the west. How beautiful! What a beautiful imagery in this poem. Emer, are you coming back? Join us again. Emer, so Anshuman, are you getting in touch with Emer? I'm waiting. So meanwhile, can we have okay, audience? There is a piece of poetry which Emer has written and narrated. And we at Narrators, we created a performed piece of poetry. So meanwhile, we get in touch with Emer again. Can we have the AV of that poetry, please? And then we resume the talk. Anshul, can we do that? Anshuman? Mm, yes, let's have the video on.
Do I look sexy in my sari? Blue, mercurial eyes, porcelain, white skin, freckles dotted across her face, peeping out from her carriage. You lay your hand across the railing, moulding her in your frame. The shutter release captures the moment. Her translucent smile, shimmering in the background. At first blush, you stand in front of her, adjusting your sari. Two contours superimposed in celluloid. Her childlike face oblivious to your intrusion. Her frosted candor crystallized in your reflection. Do I look sexy in my sari?
Oh, wow, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's a big storm here. So
Oh,
the
yeah,
electricity went down.
the weather is just like this. I mean, on and off, and sometimes it's sunny, and now, there was a lot of winds out here also. So good to have you back. So, while we were waiting for you to come back, I would like to know the story behind Do I Look Sexy in My Sari?
Well, I'd only been in India for about 3 weeks at the time, and we were in a restaurant and we were sitting by the window, and there was these three young women who were dressed in saris, and they were taking a photograph, and my 5-year-old daughter at the time was sitting against the window, so her face was framed in the shot. And they were there fixing their saris, and they were giggling away, and it was just lovely to watch that these young women who were so vibrant and youthful and so self-assured, and it kind of reminded me this is what India is about, and for young women that the confidence that they have. And when I looked at the photo, the way that the shot was they were taking the photograph. I could see that the face was my daughter's face would be slightly blurred in it, and to me it was like looking at, there's the child blooming into a young female, and the confidence and that she will have when she grows up. And to me, it reminded me a bit like India, kind of where the confidence it has got, over the years. And especially for women. And it also was, we had just arrived in India, and to me this was the journey that we were going to have. We were kind of like the child, and then we would bloom into these young women, and the exploration that we were going to have and see, the journey we were going to have.
How beautiful is that? So, how was the feeling to hold these two babies in your hand? I mean, your published poetry books. How was the feeling when they arrived and you finally held them?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was just great just to have them and to know that I have achieved this, and to go through them and take my little notes in them. And yeah, no, it was just amazing to have all that, to have it all written down, and to know that I've achieved this before I leave India, because I go at the end of July. And it's just kind of, it sums up the whole experience for me. And I will always have these words as a reminder of the wonderful memories that I have, because a lot of the poems, that all the poems except bar one were written while I was in India, and a lot of them were written about different places within India and the places that I've gone to. So the memories are there, and not just for me, but for my family as well. Of the things, and also of, I suppose, the emotions that I've gone through during the 3 years on that. So it has been a really amazing journey for me. And I'd like to thank you and Deepak and Pangav for all that your support in getting the books together on that.
So I want to ask you about this. I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful cover. I mean, very interesting. It's in the shape of chart, and there is Taj Mahal, elephant, auto, everything. The kites coming out of it. So how did you come up with the name chart? It's a Hindi word.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a book on street food chat, and it's set in Delhi. And basically, it's a map. It's kind of like a map. So it tells you of all the different places you can go to for all the stalls and the type of food, and then it gives you the recipes. And it's an absolutely fantastic book, and I loved it. And I loved all, because it just shows you the inside. The photographs are fantastic in it as well of the people, and I just thought it was a fantastic idea. And chat in Ireland is like conversation, like
Yeah.
CHAT. And to me, Irish people like to chat. We like to go for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, in a cafe and chat. And to me, poetry is like that. When you ever meet poets in Ireland, and when they get together, they have a chat. They all talk about it, mingle and that. And so to me, it was to marry the two together. And for me, because it just seemed appropriate just to call it that, because it basically was this journey that I was making and stopping along the way. And it was, to be able to show that fusion of culture and tradition, that I've seen both in Delhi and all around India. So that was the reason behind the title,
That's
yeah,
very
that was.
interesting. That's very interesting. A chart is something where we Indians take major decisions, and chart is something that we all like. I mean, especially Delhi people, they all go gaga over it in Punjabis. So there is a blessing in disguise that we are in lockdowns and we are in pandemic, that we are having this big virtual book launch of these two books. So, would you like to tell us that who are the national and international names who are being participant of your virtual book launch on 4th of July, which is on Sunday?
Yes, well, there's some esteemed international poets from Ireland, India, and Nepal. Um, they include Nicola Pearce from Ireland, Gabriel Rosenstock, who's also from Ireland, Sudip Sen, who's from India, Yu Sharma from Nepal, Jurmert Hegarty from Ireland, uh, Vivek Atre and Sanjoy Roy also. And I would like to give a special thanks to Ambassador Brendan Ward from the Embassy of Ireland, who has also contributed to the event on that.
Yeah.
And also Deepak and Pankaj and yourself
Yeah.
as well.
So, Mr. Vivek Atri is the founder member of the Chandigarh Literary Society. He's a known name here. Everybody would know him. So,
Yeah.
we are looking forward for that virtual launch. And I would like to thank Chandigarh Literary Society to give us this opportunity to have a chat about your books, poetry books on this platform. And I would like to personally invite everyone for the virtual book launch on 4th of July. And thank you so much, Emer, to share, your world, your experiences, and your stories in these books with us. And they're beautiful. They're a riveting read. I would suggest everybody that these books are available on Amazon nationally, internationally. You can go to Amazon, Kindle, anywhere, and you can order these books and read all her poetry. Thank you so much, Emer. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Nisha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.